What an impressive performance for the Ohio State Buckeyes tonight, 49-10. They took care of Rutgers 4 weeks in a row. The Buckeyes have put together blowout wins. Today, a school record-tying performance for Miyan Williams with 5 touchdown runs. We got a lot to break down. We'll be back with our instant analysis post-game show, the Buckeyes, with another big win.
We've got the whole crew together as we cover Ohio State with our instant analysis from Ohio State.
There's something that doesn't feel right.
Unbelievable effort from him today. Is E.J. Liddell going to crack the first team All-Big Ten?
I think he can be the guy. I'm not trying to start a quarterback controversy.
He seems to have the durability. He certainly has the toughness. Is the question on a lot of people's minds here. Welcome to Buckeye Breakdown.
Well, hi, everybody, and welcome to Buckeye Breakdown as we come to you from Ohio Stadium after the Buckeyes just took care of Rutgers by a final score of 49-10. I'm Brendan Gulick. This is Andrew Lind. Thanks for following along on our coverage with Buckeyes Now on Fan Nation through the Sports Illustrated Media Group. We just watched Ohio State put together yet another clinical performance. There were moments in the first half where it maybe didn't look quite as overwhelming as it did last week against Wisconsin, but we certainly saw the Buckeyes put it together with a couple of big home run caliber plays, like Miyan Williams ripping off a 70-yard touchdown run and another clean, good victory. There were a little fireworks toward the end. We'll get to that too. But I think overall the impressions here are that the Buckeyes get through these first 5 games largely looking the way you want to. They look like one of the teams that can compete for a national title.
Yeah, and I mean, today I thought it was just more about kind of efficiency and, rather than maybe the big play that we're accustomed to, just because, there was those longer drives that ended with Miyan Williams, powering it into the end zone. And I think that, we're just so used to these 30, 40-yard touchdown passes that it looked and felt a little bit different. But at the end of the day, the result was still the same. So, there's really no complaints there.
Yeah, C.J. Stroud was fine, but maybe he wasn't his, overwhelming, unbelievable self. I think it's also fair to say that, while we know he's capable of a 5-touchdown effort anytime he takes the field, the beauty of this team is that it's not just about one guy carrying them and them trying to force their way through things. I thought Ryan Day now twice this season has leaned heavily on the run. He did it against Notre Dame when he iced the game. He did it a lot tonight, despite the fact that his starting running back, TreVeyon Henderson, was a late scratch for the Buckeyes. And all it did was give Miyan Williams the platform to have a career day.
Yeah, and I think that, going there was that drive in particular where, they had several plays inside the 5-yard line. And they were really just saying, what, we're going to figure out how we're going to get this in the end zone. It doesn't matter how we do it, but we're going to do it. And, it was kind of one of those things where, you could see that there was maybe a receiver open here or there. And, CJ maybe didn't see him. I know G. Scott was wide open for what should have been a touchdown, I think maybe earlier in that drive. But, yeah, it's just saying, we know we're tough. We know we can get this ball in the end zone, and we're going to do it the way that we want to do it, not the way that they're just going to give it to us.
I think a lot of folks are probably off the top of their head starting to say, okay, look, this kind of went the way we thought it was going to go. It was Rutgers. By the way, give them credit. They capitalized on an Ohio State mistake, and Rutgers led the Buckeyes for the first time in series history with that early touchdown that the Buckeyes completely gift wrapped for them. But they took advantage. And if you're going to beat Ohio State, you have to take advantage of the rare occasional mistake, I guess, maybe occasional at best, but rare, more an appropriate term. Give them credit for that. They threw some wrinkles at Ohio State and they played hard. But if you're a Buckeye fan, you walk away from today probably saying 2 things. One, kind of expected to blow out Rutgers. It happens regularly. And this team is obviously on a roll. And 2, what's going on that, like, all of a sudden there's some guys that are just not quite 100% and occasionally not available. You don't want to let that black cloud hang over a win, but today it was TreVeyon Henderson that wasn't able to play. Julian Fleming has battled injuries. We haven't seen much of Jaxon Smith-Njigba all year. Obviously the secondary is a bit banged up, lost another guy tonight in Tanner McAllister. It's just like, it's a weird feeling.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that we can pinpoint it or, really want to speculate on why, maybe those injuries are piling up. But yeah, I mean, it really does seem like, there's maybe 2 or 3 guys each week that you maybe didn't expect to be out or just, have a bigger role that maybe, got injured in a game or those kind of things. And yeah, I mean, it could just be maybe they're going a little too hard in practice. But I mean, And it's kind of the game of football. It's not like, you're going out there and not touching each other and then, think that you're going to be okay for a, possibly 15 game season. Like that's going to happen. So I think that, just them taking that, like Ryan Day said, an abundance of caution with those things. Like Tanner McAllister, we don't know the extent of his injury, but I mean, if he was okay to go back in that game, and they needed him, maybe he would have, so, we see these guys come out and we don't find out. It's really difficult too with the fact that we don't find out what injuries are or anything like that because they don't tell us. So yeah, it's just really, I think it's a matter of them being smart with those injuries, but at the same time realizing that it's a long season and you really just have to be that way.
So today, Tanner McAllister gets hurt and Tyleik Williams gets hurt. Both guys came out of the medical tent. They never even went to the locker room. Mm-hmm. I don't know that necessarily they were injured to the point where they couldn't play again. Both were walking around on the sideline and appeared, if you want to say it that way, appeared to generally be okay. But out of abundance of caution, they don't go back in. Ohio State's depth is going to be tested this year. And I thought, a good storyline from today is when you're starting running back who's, look, TreVeyon's got crazy high potential. And we've seen in his 270-yard game, no one will ever forget the way he ran last year against Tulsa. TreVeyon's been a little fragile. Is that fair to say? I mean, he's been dealing with some nagging little things here and there. Toward the end of his freshman year last year, he wasn't 100%. Mm-hmm. He hasn't been 100% this year. And I think the fact there is some depth in that room is helping. I'm not trying to knock Henderson for it. He's an elite talent, but he hasn't been able to be at his peak. And for a lot of teams, that would be detrimental.
Well, I'd say that I think that's the thing, the fact that if he is out or if they don't want to give him as much of a workload, they can say, okay, well, we're going to give it to Miyan and Miyan's going to bulldoze. And I think that we kind of touched on this a couple weeks ago, but TreVeyon didn't have a senior year of high school.
Right.
So, there's still just that, I know he ran into it toward the end of last year and just, the amount of games that were being played and having that time off and that kind of wears you down. But yeah, I mean, I think this game honestly kind of reminded me of that Tulsa game. Not just because, Miyan had 5 touchdowns and TreVeyon had the 272 yards or whatever it was, but just in kind of the reliance on them. And I think that just you can kind of see how they complement each other too. So it's like, TreVeyon's going to be that big hitter. And I know that, that Miyan can be that, but more than likely, we're just going to see him bowl over people. So yeah, I mean, I think they complement each other in a way that's like, when one of them's injured or they just kind of need a breather or whatever, that's great. But at the same time, they complement each other playing style as well.
Miyan certainly bowled somebody over on that second touchdown. Mm-hmm. That was pretty fun to watch. Look, I think there's a lot of reason to feel good about the way these first 5 games went. I feel compelled to address this. And I should preface it by saying this has nothing to do with the team. This is not coming from within the confines of the team. This has nothing to do with a lack of attention to detail as they prep. I am sensing almost an apathy from fans as they watch the beginning of this season because the expectations are so high. Mm-hmm. And for good reason, right? We've seen the ability for people to think like it's national championship or bust. I think it was disappointing tonight that I know they announced a crowd of 104,000 and Coach Day definitely said the right things at the podium. He thanked everybody for 5 straight home games. It is a ton of work to get ready to host events. And I thought that was a nice thing for him to do. There were not 104,000 people here today. I don't know that there were 90,000 people here today. And I recognize that the third quarter, the game was over, but there was like a mass exodus of people with 2 minutes left in the third quarter. Like, come on, man, what are we doing?
Yeah, I saw some people said that it wasn't homecoming, it was home leaving, which I thought was kind of interesting. But yeah, I mean, on one hand, it is 5 straight home games. This is kind of the game that you expected them to blow them out. So I understand why fans don't want to come. It's much better to sometimes just sit in the comfort of your home and watch TV and watch,
It's a beautiful fall day. There was no threat of rain today. You're watching your team put a whooping on somebody. Like, and again, like, I'm not trying to be adversarial with you, but there probably aren't that many people that were here today that were also at each of the 4 prior games. So I just wonder why there is this general, like, oh, we expect to win and we'll pay attention and mid to late October if things get going, or when the Michigan game happens. Like, you're missing the fun.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are plenty of fans. Obviously, the 95,000 that were actually here, are obviously, cheering on the team and paying attention and those kind of things. So I don't want to make it seem like we're maybe knocking the fan base or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just kind of one of those things we talked about, just the roller coaster of the schedule. You open with Notre Dame, then you have 2 lesser games, then you have Wisconsin, then you have a lesser game, and it's like, I understand if I'm going to spend my money, I'm going to want to spend it on those bigger games, and then games that there's at least that chance that maybe not that they lose, but that you're going to actually get your money's worth. So if everybody expects it to just be a blowout like that, I don't necessarily blame them for not wanting to spend money on it.
I get it. And again, look, I realize everybody's in different circumstances. I guess I just approach it from the perspective that I have often rooted for teams in my life outside of Ohio State that really haven't won very much. Okay. And certainly have rooted for teams that, it's a long road ahead, but you lock in because it's your team. And the idea that I'm going to stick with this team and I'm going to be there for every single moment, not just, maybe I'll check in toward the end of the year if they're playing a good team or if they get hot. This team is so talented. This is not normal, guys. What we're watching Ohio State do every week doesn't happen at a lot of places. And I guess I'm just trying to speak to the section of fans that aren't appreciating how unbelievable this team is, because you're missing out. And I hope that the fact the team's going to go on the road and play Michigan State next week, I know the Spartans aren't great. They should be a better team than what we saw today. Wisconsin, traditionally a great team. They got housed today at Illinois. Maybe part of this is, frankly, the Big Ten hasn't looked very good. Yeah. It's been a bad year for Big Ten football right now. Penn State's been okay. Michigan has been fine. They haven't played a very hard schedule, but they've been fine. The rest of the Big Ten's been underwhelming. So maybe we just need to get to some of these bigger games, man. But I'm just a little frustrated by some of the things I'm hearing and seeing.
Maybe we should make you have Kevin Warren's job and just kick Rutgers, Maryland, Northwestern, kick them out of the Big Ten, bring in some, make every single week a big game, if you will.
It's more fun when you're more invested in the team.
Absolutely.
That's for sure.
And I mean, I think ultimately, it just comes down to the fact that, maybe it was, this was only the 3rd time in school history that at least since Ohio Stadium opened 100 years ago, that they had 5 straight home games in any season. So yeah, I think it just kind of is one of those things that we knew what to expect. Fans knew what to expect. Just a kind of just a lull, if you will, at that point. So, obviously with them going on the road at Michigan State, then having the off week and then coming back and, it's going to be a scarlet out for Iowa. So I think people are going to get excited for that. And then, then you really seem to hit, Penn State. It's going to be down a little bit because you got at Northwestern, but then, just finish out strong with Michigan and stuff. And I just think that, it's like that, kind of like that roller coaster that I mentioned.
Well, and part of me wonders if as a group that covers Ohio State, and I don't want to put words in anybody else's mouth, but certainly from our perspective, the expectations are through the roof. I mean, this team is capable of winning a national championship, period. Watch college football and watch the Buckeyes. They are absolutely, without question, one of the elite teams in the country. And what can happen because we've seen some frustrating losses along the way. So you got to stay locked in with what's going on. I guess I get frustrated when I hear things from fans or when I see people that are just totally checked out. So if you are following Ohio State this year very closely, I hope you're enjoying the ride, because I just can't emphasize enough what we are watching with this team is outrageously fun. They are unbelievably talented. You can pick up any superlative you want. This team has what it takes to do it. You don't need to have a perfect game every time you play, but they've got the answers.
I do wonder though, if and I want to make sure I put this the right way, but I think that just, as somebody who even grew up an Ohio State fan, went to Ohio State, obviously I'm in the media, so I got to be, impartial and all that at this point. But, I think it's one of those things that you just kind of come to expect Ohio State to be great. And you kind of forget about, there's been times where there's been struggles. 2011, it may seem, it's been 11 years already, which is crazy. But I mean, that season, they couldn't even score a touchdown on Miami. And if you couldn't score a touchdown on Miami today, you'd be like, what in the world is going on? And I think that it's just easy when you get those expectations to maybe not enjoy it as much as you should just along the way. And I think that may be part of it. And then it's just I feel like everybody kind of says, well, it doesn't matter until Michigan. Like everybody just expects them to be 11-0 going into that, and that's the game that matters. So I see it from all different angles.
And I don't want to play ignorant here either, because I hear that, I get that angle, and the reality is, if this team loses before Michigan, something cataclysmic happened, like completely and totally bananas for this team to, and that includes Penn State. Penn State's good. They're not even close to being on Ohio State's playing field. So I understand that mentality. I also think part of it is the problem with college football right now. And I don't want to go on a whole saga about all of this, but there's a reason why the best players in the country choose to go to 3 schools. There's a reason why Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State have the vast majority of the 5-star talent that comes out of high school. And you can go look it up. It is overwhelming how many of those players pick one of those 3 programs. I'm hopeful that the expansion of the college football playoff bracket is going to help even some of that out. I'm glad Ohio State is winning. I want them to keep winning. I just want people to appreciate the journey, because this team isn't taking it lightly. They got ready for Rutgers this week, and it was like, hey, let's go try to play the best game we've ever played. Ryan Day said that at Skull Session today.
Well, I do think that, I kind of see it the opposite way when it comes to expansion, because at that point, basically a 2-loss Ohio State team is going to make it to the playoffs. So, I don't think there's going to be as much importance placed on the regular season. And I do think that maybe that might help, the talent be spread out a little bit more, but I don't think it's going to change that much in terms of just, 1, Ohio State's always going to be Ohio State. 2, they're going to be able to afford to have 2 losses every single year. And, I think really just the fan apathy might even get worse at that point.
Well, we'll see. I'm hopeful that more teams being in the playoff will open more doors for some of those players to choose to go to different schools. And we can talk about that another time. Let's focus back on the defensive side of the ball here for a moment, because it's a team worth watching. The defense played really, really well again today, with the exception of the touchdown they gave up literally from the get-go, right, on the fumbled punt, and handed Rutgers the ball at the 15-ish yard line. Other than that, they gave up a field goal all day. Another great performance. We saw a key fumble recovery. We saw a great interception. So many people are sitting there saying, hey, look, this team, the offense has never been part of the equation here. Yeah. It's how far can the defense take you? And time again now, through the first 5 weeks of the season, the defense is showing you they're living up to the challenge.
Yeah, and I think it's been great that we've seen the turnovers start to flow too. It kind of starts up front with the pressure and the defensive line's able to get. And obviously Zach Harrison had his hand in the face of the quarterback when he threw the interception. So it's just it starts with them, and for them to be able to have just the impact that they're having for Ohio State's, as a whole. We kind of talked about this last week, that the offense itself is great. Like, they don't have to necessarily worry about what the defense is doing, but then when the defense adds to that, they get a turnover, they get a stop, they, are able to get the field position set up for them, like that they just feed off of that, and that really only makes the offense even better.
I feel like Cade Stover's day today was underrated. He made a number of really, really good plays that just aren't going to show up in a stat sheet. I love talking about Cade Stover because he's one of my favorite players to watch. I thought he had a good day, but he didn't have, the eye-popping day that we saw last week, or certainly 2 weeks ago. I thought he played fine. I thought Mitch Rossi had a pretty good game. Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Egbuka played pretty well. I thought CJ's interception kind of got held up in the wind a little bit. And actually, I was hopeful I was going to be able to ask Ryan Day, and we just unfortunately ran out of time. There's a lot of questions. I thought the wind played a significant impact in the game. I think that was sole-handedly the reason why the punt was fumbled, right? I mean, the wind was swirling and blowing so hard that the flag pole, not just the flag, the pole was leaning.
You have to remember the pole itself is like, it's not just like your backyard flagpole. That thing is literally,
I mean, it's got to be 100 feet tall, right?
Well, and it's quite round too. So yeah, I mean, it's not like it's just swinging because it's a light wind.
It was the pennant flags around the top of the stadium were ripping in the wind. So I have to think that it was, I mean, while it was certainly felt that up high, I have to think that played an impact when you're on the field. But, you know, I thought CJ made mostly good throws and mostly good decisions. It's probably his second straight week of, hey, we won. So whatever, we won. You know, I made one mistake. I threw an interception, but we won. And that's okay. You're allowed to have that. Yeah,
and he's kind of, you know, he basically came up here and said that today. It was just, you know, a matter of, you know, he's not necessarily concerned about putting up all kinds of numbers anymore. It's just, you know, he knows how good he is. He knows his worth to this team. And, you know, as long as they keep winning, then at the end of the day, then he's doing his job and doing what he's supposed to do. I do think that, you know, there was one thing that kind of stood out to me too, and it's just the awareness of where everybody is at on the field. I know there was a couple penalties today where, you know, there was a catch. Marvin Harrison had it in the back of the end zone, but he had stepped out of bounds and came back in and then caught it. And I think that there was another one as well. And I think that those are just things that, you know, I don't want to say that they maybe weren't as focused today, but I think that just, you know, we kind of talk about the opponent and just knowing that you're that much better than them. Maybe you're not as, you know, as precise in things.
All right. So I think those are the most obvious thoughts. Anything that we missed?
I did see Greg Madison here today, which I thought was very interesting. Yeah,
I did not catch that.
Ohio State's former defensive coordinator was here, and he was sitting in the front row behind the bench. And, you know, so you got two former defensive coordinators.
Give him a megaphone.
With Shiano, too. So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of those things.
How can we forget to talk about that? I mentioned it earlier, and then I went on my soliloquy. I think it's fair to point out that Jesse Mirko ran on his own accord. That was not a designed fake punt with the Buckeyes up 39 in the middle of the fourth quarter. But if you're Rutgers, why would you run that play? I mean, they put four guys together, overloaded a blitz. Yeah. Jesse rolls to his right. What's he supposed to do?
Even if
it's like 40 yards and nothing in front of him.
Right. And even though it wasn't called, which I was kind of disappointed, because if you even go back to the COVID year, I think Rutgers ran like three.
Yes, they did.
3 trick plays, including throwing to a eligible tackle. You know, so I thought maybe Ryan Day had that up his sleeve. And I heard somebody say that when Rutgers rushed that, you know, there were some players on the sidelines that were kind of like, hey, run. And, you know, so I don't think that Jesse was expecting to get hit as hard as he did, but you got to remember that he's a former Australian rules football player. And you can actually read a story about it on our website that I wrote the other day, that he talked about just kind of the game itself and how it's a little bit mixed between soccer and rugby. So hopefully it was a little bit. Kid. Yeah. I mean, the fact that he got up, it was definitely a little bit more rugby than soccer, because if not, they would have literally put him on a cart and pulled him out of here.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So no, the fireworks there at the end with Coach Day and Coach Shiano getting into it, made for good TV, I would imagine. You know, I haven't even seen it on TV. I saw half of a replay, but it sure looked heated, and I know a lot of people were talking about it, but they had a longer than normal exchange at midfield post game that I think kind of tempered things a bit.
I'd say when I saw it, Ryan Day was, he was hot. Like, one, I don't understand why Greg Schiano was on the other side of the field. Like, I understand, you know, coming and getting your player and telling him to get out of there and those kind of things, but then, you know, these dudes had fingers in each other's faces, and it was like, it was a little bit much. So after the game, you know, of course, I'm like hoping there's a little bit of some words that were exchanged. So I'm standing in the end zone and I'm like measuring it up. I'm like, I got 68 yards to go, and the coach has got 58 to get out there. I booked it. But yeah, I mean, cooler heads prevailed, and, you know, they obviously, you know, had some words that, like, good words, cordial words, you know, just kind of explaining the situation and those kind of things. And I think it's just one of those things, in the heat of the moment, you're really mad. You know, we've all been there. And then afterwards, you're kind of like, wait, I probably shouldn't have acted that way. But at least, you know, it wasn't nothing happened that you can't come back from. And that's all that matters.
And Ryan said afterward that, you know, he held no ill will toward Greg. He was just protecting his player, and they, you know, said their I'm sorry's at midfield and moved on. So, thankfully, it didn't get out of hand, but for a hot moment there, everybody was kind of like, "Whoa, yeah, that's going to get out of hand."
I'd say in a game like that, when it was kind of just, you know, just kind of a you know, a steady game where everything went as expected, it was a little bit of excitement to have that happen
for sure. Ohio State 49, Rutgers 10. The final score today from Ohio Stadium. The Buckeyes have one more game before the bye, right? Yeah, the 15th is the bye. That means they're just one more before that. They're in East Lansing to play the Michigan State Spartans next Saturday. Looking forward to being on the road to see what the Buckeyes can do in a hostile environment for the first time this year. Of course, we'll have it covered for you here on Buckeyes Now. But in the meantime, we've got lots of coverage planned for you this week. So head to BuckeyesNow.com. You can find us on our social media channels at BuckeyesNow_FN. We're part of the Fan Nation network with Sports Illustrated Media Group covering this incredible football team here in Columbus. So hope you'll follow us there. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you watch this live, we did see a couple of comments on the side. Thanks for contributing those. And if you are listening after the fact, that's fine too. You can listen on demand or wherever you like your favorite podcasts. So hope to see you again as we get ready for Ohio State and Michigan State this week. Big thanks to Eddie Murata, our producer. For Andrew Lind, I'm Brendan Gulick. We'll see you soon. Ohio State 49, Rutgers 10. Thanks for following our instant analysis here.
We've got the whole crew together as we cover Ohio State with our instant analysis from Ohio State.
There's something that doesn't feel right.
Unbelievable effort from him today. Is E.J. Liddell going to crack the first team All-Big Ten?
I think he can be the guy. I'm not trying to start a quarterback controversy.
He seems to have the durability. He certainly has the toughness. Is the question on a lot of people's minds here. Welcome to Buckeye Breakdown.